All right, what's up, my friends? Welcome back to the Foundation's Starter Collection set review. Once again, the main set review is already on YouTube. That's the entire 280 card set that you'll be drafting, finding in packs, and so on and so forth. This is a review of the starter set. These cards are legal and standard, and there's a lot of important ones for standard in here, but they are not draftable. So the focus here is only on standard, and that's the deal, right? So pretty simple, all right? So that's the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, support the content. We're brought to you by Ultimate Guard. Check out Ultimate Guard. Great sponsor of mine. They do wonderful things in the community. Their booth at MagicCon Vegas is awesome. They do great content stuff. Just great stuff. Check them out, Ultimate Guard, wherever Ultimate Guard products are sold near you. Let's get into blue, folks. Starting with a boomer Magic card.
I bet you weren't expecting that one, God.
Arcanus the Omnipotent. And this is a nice deep cut for me. This card is back from Onslaught. One of the pit fighters back from Onslaught. And Onslaught was about the set where I started playing serious Magic. And the set had one legendary pit fighter of each color that was color 3 legendary creature. And they were all like really exciting creatures. Because for those who don't know, in the early days of Magic, creatures were terrible. Just awful.
You think that was terrible?
Really bad. So these creatures don't look very good now, but compared to the creatures before, crazy. So this is a 6 mana 3/4. You tap it to draw 3 cards, and then it has 4 mana to return this back into your owner's hand and protect it. So this card is realistically not that good. Back in the day, it saw a little play in standard because it is a 6 mana card, whatever. But the big thing about this card in standard is the card Agatha's Soul Cauldron exists. And giving your creatures the ability to tap to draw 3 is pretty damn powerful. So while this card probably won't see play in standard, that is a possible out for it, which is pretty cool. Playing this card straight up, probably not good enough. But if you have some way to give it haste or untap it, or whatever else, that could be cool. So cool boomer reprint. Honestly has a reasonable, chance to be a fringe playable card, but it's just cool. I just like seeing cards like this, Good stuff. Burrog Befuddler. This card is literally legal and standard in Bloomburrow, and it's a draft card. We're going to move on. We're going to go through the draft cards here because obviously there is no draft format for this, so not worth talking about. Cancel. There are many better versions of this in standard. This is just a starter card. We're going to move on. Chart of Course. I believe this card's already legal and standard. It's an Ixalan, but this is a really powerful card. This is a card that sees a lot of play. It sees play in standard. It sees a little play in Pioneer occasionally in Phoenix decks. And there's just a really powerful effect. 2 mana, draw 2, discard 1 is great for graveyard decks. And then being able to spend 2 and draw 2 if you're attacking is also really cool too. This card plays great in Oculus decks. It's already legal right now, but the big thing about Foundations is these cards are going to be legal and standard for the next 5 years. That's a long time. So this is why this is a really important release. And I get the old art too, which is cool too. And this card's great. Big fan of Chart of Course. Powerful card. Happy to see it around for a long time. Confiscate is a less powerful card. Good draft card, but not playable constructed. You need a lot more than this. Honestly, I guess there is some aura stuff going on and some enchantment cheapening stuff going on, but probably still not good enough. Corsair Captain. 2 mana for a 2/2. It's a Lord for pirates. When it ETBs, make a treasure. There is a lot of pirate stuff in standard still from the Ixalan sets, but this card's a little bit below the bar as far as rate goes. 3 mana for a Lord, it's a 2/2, which is not good enough anymore these days. And the treasure is not really good enough. If this card was just a 2/2 for 2 with no treasure ability, it probably still wouldn't be good enough. So not really there. I don't think constructed, just not really good enough. Dictate of Crufix. This is a card that is a lot more powerful than it looks. Blue 1 enchantment has flash. It's a Howling Minds. Each player draws a card. Draws an extra card when they draw a card. Big thing here is this card has flash, so you can play it on your opponent's end step, and then you get to draw the card first. Problem with Howling Mind was that they draw the card first. That being said, while this card is powerful and has seen playing in constructed multiple times, it requires a pretty specific kind of deck, usually a Turbo Fog deck or some sort of way to really use these cards. So it is powerful, but very fringy, but definitely a card that will probably see play at some point over the next 5 years and one to watch out for. And it's pretty cool. Dive Down. I think this card's in standard right now. It might not be, but it's the card that's seen play in standard before. It's a reasonable protection spell. +3/+0, hexproof. If there's some sort of blue creature deck that wants protect its creatures, this card does that. It's seen play before. It'll see play again. And a cool thing to have in the toolbox. We actually have Shore Up legal right now, which I think is better than Dive Down. So while Shore Up is legal, Dive Down probably not playable. But when Shore Up leaves, could see some play. Eaten by Piranhas. It's meant for an aura with Flash, enchanted creature. Loses all abilities, becomes a skeleton. We have Unable to Scream in Standard. I think it's better than this, just being by virtue of being cheaper. Having Flash is kind of cool, and there obviously is some enchantment and aura stuff happening in Standard. So this card could be like a fringe card to have in your deck building toolbox, but probably not relevant enough, I don't think. Exclusion Mage. Mana War, but it's a human and a wizard. I mean, there is some wizard stuff in the set, but Mana War is a little past its heyday of playability, so probably not. But just give us Mana War back, you know? Why make this a freaking Exclusion Mage? Give us Mana War, you chumps. Finale Revelation. Blue X. Draw X cards. If X is 10 or more, instead shuffle your graveyard to your library and draw X cards. Untap up to 5 lands, and you have no max hand size the rest of the game, and you can exile Finale Revelation. So this is a Mind Spring with a bunch of extra words on it. The X is 10 or more effect will very rarely ever come up. Is Mind Spring playable? Not really. There's a better version of this already in Standard right now. Silver Scrutiny, where if X is 3 or less, it's an instant. That card's gas, honestly. So not really good enough. I suppose if that card rotates and there's some blue big mana deck that wants this effect, sure, but real fringe player in Standard. Flash Freeze. Oh my god. Folks, it might seem weird to give the Best in Show award to a sideboard card. But this card's ridiculous, all right? I'm very surprised that they're putting this card in Standard for the next 5 years, because Flash Freeze is a really powerful hate spell. 2 mana for an instant. Counter target red or green spell. So this is just counter spell. It's easy to cast against red and green decks, which is a huge deal. This card has seen extensive sideboard play whenever it's been legal in Standard. Sees play in Pioneer, or has seen play in Pioneer, has seen play in Modern before. This is a big one. This is a really big deal. Listen, it's here for the next 5 years. So if you're a green or red player, get ready to hate Flash Freeze, because this card is kind of ridiculous. All right, Flash Freeze, Best in Show for blue in the Foundation's starter set. Big time control card. Folks, raise your hand in chat if you're like me and you used to freaking love the card Fog Bank back in the day. All right. What a cool card is Fog Bank. 2 mana for a wall, defender, flying, prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to and by this creature. How do you ever get through this card? It's unstoppable. But you're playing Kitchen Table Magic when you're like 15 years old. This card is like, how do I beat it? Because no one ever plays kill spells in those formats. You're just like, attack it by Crawworm, and you just block it. I can't do anything. So really cool card. Strong agree. They chose the wrong art for this card. The Raptors is really cool. But this is just like a really fun card. It probably is not viable constructed, but sometimes I would say a lot of what I like about this set is there's just a lot of cool stuff in it. You know, just stuff that makes you smile. I may never cast this card because it's on unlimited, and I probably won't play it constructed. But it's just cool. I just think it's neat. You know, I just think it's neat.
I'm sorry, Tyler Murphy. It was an accident.
What can I say?
I was having too much fun.
All right, Fog Bank's cool. I'm glad that it's here. But if you're playing in paper and you do play this card, make sure you get the Urza Saga versions. All right. Gateway Sneak is next. This is our blue Gates Matter card. Unfortunately, they did not give us Guild Summit, which is like the real banger. That card's really good, though, so I kind of get it. 1/3 Ophidian. The damage player draw a card. If you play a Gate, it's unblockable. Not good enough for Standard. Realistically, I think the Gates deck will be a thing in Standard, and there are a lot of good Gates cards, but this card is just too fragile. And when you're playing the Gate deck, you're playing kind of like a ramp control deck. So playing a random 1/3 for 3 is just not good enough. So if this was legal in draft, it would be a pretty good card. But as it stands, yeah, maybe as a sideboard card in the Gates deck. Like if you're looking for like a juke where they board out their blue spells, you board this in. But otherwise, not very exciting. Harbinger of Asides, a little merfolk action, huh? This is a cool card. Blue for a 2/2. You can cast it for 4 mana with Flash. And when it ETBs, you bounce a tap creature to its owner's hand. This card has seen play in various spots over the years, in merfolk decks or in Flash decks. It's not like particularly powerful, but it's reasonable enough. It's a reasonable tempo card. Obviously plays well in combat. If they attack you, you can like bounce an attacker and block a different attacker. But that being said, like it's like probably not good enough. Being a merfolk might matter. There is merfolk stuff in Ixalan. Being a wizard might matter. There's some wizard stuff too. But it's fringy, pretty hard to cast. So if there's a deck that wants this card and can cast it, it could see play, but I somewhat doubt that deck will exist. But it's a cool card. Fun reprint. Into the Royal. I believe this card is maybe illegal right now, but just a fringe bounce spell. Let's see a little play here and there. You know, if your deck wants a 2-mana bounce spell for some reason, this is probably the best one. Most decks won't, but just a really, really fringe card. Kitesail Courser, bad draft card. Not for constructed, obviously. Mystic Archaeologist. I like Azure Mage, personally. 10 for a 2/1 wizard, 5 mana, draw 2. Azure Mage, it's funny, is the exact same card, but it's 4 mana, draw 1. But like 4 is so much less than 5, and I almost prefer that card. That's a card that I used to board all the time in my control decks, where they would board out the removal spells. You bring in this cheap creature that draws cards. You say go, leave your mana up, pretty cool. But that being said, this card, that's also a kind of a hallmark of like Magic from like 5 or 10 years ago. It's not really as relevant. So, you know, this card's probably not good enough, unfortunately. Mystical Teachings. This is a card that saw a lot of play back in the day. I won the New York State Championship in like 2009 playing this card in my deck. This was a major card in Standard and Block Constructed. These Teachings control decks, where they just played a bunch of good one-of cards that had, for instance, one Teferi Mages of Fear, and just like, it was the whole package, you know? And that kind of magic, because also what was good about this card was you could cast Teachings for Teachings. Like you flash it back, get a Teachings, keep doing it. Again, that sort of magic does not really jive particularly well with modern day Magic. You don't really have time to spend 6 mana to go get a card. So it probably won't be relevant. This is probably more of like a combo enabler if you are playing a combo that wants a certain kind of card. But all in all, probably a little bit too clunky, but it's a cool card, you know. These days, we just have like, you know, crazy 4 and 5 mana mythic creatures that win the game by themselves. We don't need to accrue this kind of like slow value. So kind of a hallmark of old day Magic. Rip, isn't it is. Negate. Great. I feel like half the reason why Foundations exists is for Negate and Duress to always be in Standard without being in main sets. Negate should be a card that's always legal, period. End of story, nonstop. And now it is. Great. Opt. Cool. I mean, Consider's better, obviously, but this is now your, you know, de facto cantrip of choice, you know? So this card's legal for the next 5 years. If you're playing a deck that wants a cantrip, this card's more than reasonable. Sees play in Pioneer. Good card to have around. Just a nice little deck building toolbox kind of card. Quick Study, also a card that's currently legal. It's a fringe playable card in control decks, you know. Instant speed, draw 2 for 3 is pretty good, honestly. You know, but again, that sort of draw go kind of control deck is endangered species these days. So there aren't a lot of decks that want this card, but it's reasonable. It's, you know, reasonable card. Rider Application. Where are my commander players at? All right. Not as good as Doppelgang, but 4 mana for a sorcery, copy a creature, and then spend 5 mana to copy it 5 times. Big time commander card. One of those big dumb go big kind of cards. I think if you want to do this in Standard, Doppelgang is just a lot better. Because it can target permanents, it scales a lot better, and so on and so forth. But that being said, it's a cool, fun card, I guess. So probably won't see it play constructed, but put your commander deck, have a good time. River's Rebuke. Return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hand. So this is a, speaking of commander players, this is a Cyclonic Rift targeting 1 player. I mean, the problem with this card is that, like, if you're playing it as sort of a controlling deck, like, they can just play all the stuff again on turn 8 or 9 or whatever. But if your opponent's playing tokens or playing a bunch of permanents in their stuff, this could be a card that sees some sideboard play in Standard. Probably not, but it's a fringe playable card. Shipwreck Dowser, 5 mana for a 3/3. Prowess, EDB, return an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. This might look like a draft card, but I believe this is the only type of this effect in Standard. And this effect is sometimes seen in combo decks where you can like return it and do a loop with it. That being said, if it's not being played for that use, it is not playable. But it is, one of those cards that like might be a card that shows up at some point if some loop is available. So if you open a foil one or whatever, put it in your binder and stuff. Sphinx the Final Word. 7 mana for a 5/5. Can't be countered, hexproof. And instant sorcery spells you control can't be countered. Kind of like the ultimate stupid Dumbo Mirror Breaker for control decks. Again, there aren't a lot of pure control decks in Standard right now, and they'll find ways to answer this. I think there are better uncounterable cards, but in the deck builder's toolbox, if you're looking for a card for a control mirror, this card is a card that exists and is not the worst option for sure. Starlight Snare, you meant it for a tap your thing at common. This is a draft card, not playable, instructed. Stormfleet Spy, you meant it for a 2/2 raid, EDB draw card, just not good enough. If it was just a 2/2 for to draw a card for 3, it would be good enough in constructed. So just a draft card that has no home. Tempest Jin returns. I'm gonna get yelled at for this one. This card saw a good amount of play the last time it was legal in Standard. Blue. Creature Jin, flying, +1/+0 over each basic island you control, and it's an 0/4. So if you're playing all islands, it's a 3/4 base, gets bigger and bigger. The problem is there are just like better versions of this card, right? Like Haughty Jin is just like a lot better than this in every facet of the game. It doesn't require you to play all islands either. Has a much higher ceiling too. On turn 5, Haughty Jin's power is usually 7 or 8. This card's power will be 4 or 5 maybe, 3 or 4 or 5. So I think this card has a pretty bad competition as far as Haughty Jin goes. The mana cost is extremely difficult. Also, you need to be playing basically mono blue. So I think this card is just like not good enough anymore. Could it see play? Yeah, if there's some sort of like mono blue tempo deck that's looking for a decently beefy flyer. But I also just think that 4 toughness ain't what it used to be either. So, I don't think this card doesn't see much play. Maybe, possibly, but that mana cost is just way too tough. So, trap card for blue, Tempest Jin. Sorry, folks. Unsummon. From trap card to sleeper card. This card, it's so funny because Unsummon's been around since Alpha. It's been in the game for such a long time. And honestly, was never that great. Saw some play like in the Blue-Green Madness days or whatever as like a bounce spell. But modern day Magic is so much more about tempo. There's a lot of good tokens also. That Unsummon is like kind of fine, And right now we have the card Into the Flood Maw in Standard, which is an Unsummon that can only target their things, and you can gift a fish to unbounce a permanent. Targeting your own stuff with Unsummon is a big part of the card. If I'm playing a blue tempo deck, and I'm playing against a creature deck, I bounce the creature, I get it for some damage into tempo. If I'm playing against a control deck, I can save my own creature from a removal spell and then replay it. So having that sort of utility on both sides of the ball is pretty awesome. And Into the Flood Maw does not have that. And it's still seeing play. It's seeing play in like a few different decks in Standard right now. And it's certainly a playable card. I mean, the Unsummon is great. It looks like a dumb, simple starter card, but like this card's real. This card will see play in Standard for sure. And don't sleep on it, honestly. It's all I'm trying to say. Realistically, I'm going to cast this card a lot. Voracious Great Shark returns. 5 mana for a 5/4. Flash, EDB counter, a creature or artifact spell. 5 mana is a lot. Realistically, oh my god. I'm Batman. I'm good. But yeah, this card, just too clunky. Too clunky and narrow. You play this, you hold mana of this card on turn 5, and they cast the Planeswalker, and you just cry. You just have to cast it. It's just you can't waste 5 mana. So just not good enough. Maybe if there's like a flash deck and there's a bunch of heavy creature decks in the format or heavy artifact decks, but this card's just too narrow and too clunky for what it does. That's it for blue. So to recap, Flash Freeze best in show. We got Unsummon as our sleeper card, and we have Tempest Jin as our trap card. So red's coming up. Again, this is the review for the starter cards in Foundations. Legal and standard, but not in the draft packs. All right. Like, comment, subscribe, support the content. Black's coming up. Let's do this.